One common argument I've heard against expanding public transit is that it would bring drugs, homelessness, and crime. I believe that this is baloney. And in this video, I will explain why I believe that. So, let's start with drugs. Per the World Population Review, the United States is the country with by far the most drug use per capita. Yes, the car-centric United States. Countries known for great public transit, such as Japan, Spain, and France, have much lower rates of drug usage than the United States. Given that fact, it does not seem like public transit breeds drugs. Looking within the United States, there really does not seem to be any correlation between public transit and drugs. Drexel University's Urban Health Collaborative took a look at drug overdose deaths per 100,000 people in major American cities. And what it shows is that there's a mix of cities with good transit and cities with poor transit all across the list. Philadelphia, which is one of the better cities for public transit in the United States, has a slightly higher drug overdose death rate than Columbus, which is known for subpar public transit for a city of its size. Memphis has a higher drug overdose death rate than Chicago. And Baltimore has by far the highest drug overdose death rates among major cities, despite having far from the best public transit. Needless to say, there does not seem to be a correlation between drug overdose deaths and public transit. Now that we've talked about the lack of correlation between drugs and public transit, let's look into whether there is a correlation between crime and public transit. And once again, there really isn't any correlation between transit and crime. Looking at the American cities with the highest crime rates, it includes places with good public transit relative to most other cities, and places with poor public transit relative to most other cities. It includes Oakland, which has 9 heavy rail stations, as well as Little Rock, which has a combination of buses, microtransit, and a heritage streetcar. Lincoln, Nebraska has a higher crime rate than Boston, Massachusetts. And Tulsa, Oklahoma has a higher crime rate than Washington, D.C. So, we haven't been able to find a connection between drugs and public transit, nor have we been able to find a connection between crime and public transit. But what about homelessness and public transit? Here, it might be tempting to say that there is a correlation, because of the high rates of homelessness in New York City, the most transit-rich city in the entire country. But the argument that there is a correlation between public transit and homelessness falls apart quite badly when you realize that Eugene, Oregon has the highest homelessness rate per capita in the entire country. I'm not an expert at Eugene's public transit situation, but I know for sure that they do not have the quality of transit New York City does. I think that there is a correlation between housing affordability and homelessness, though, because many of the cities that seem to have the highest homelessness per capita also seem to be known for being really expensive cities. So, maybe we should blame housing affordability rather than public transit. Just a thought. To play devil's advocate with the homelessness issue, though, I can foresee some comments pointing out that the shelter offered by transit vehicles, as well as underground rail stations, could attract unhoused individuals. However, I see unhoused individuals taking shelter in public transit as a symptom of greater societal issues not caused by public transit, such as economic inequality, healthcare costs that are out of control, a poor mental health care system, and housing that is unaffordable for way too many of us. societal issues that wouldn't be fixed if we kept public transit as is or made it worse. As such, it turns out that public transit does not bring homelessness, just as it does not bring drugs and it does not bring crime. I can see why such narratives exist in terms of connecting transit to drugs, homelessness, and crime. However, after all, the current American presidential administration has a tendency to label certain major cities as being crime infested. And often, the major cities that get this label are ones with vibrant public transit networks. So, I can see why some may be led to believe that good public transit brings drugs, crime, and homelessness. But, to the shock of some, and to the lack of shock of others, depending on where you fall on the American political spectrum, narratives from the current presidential administration are capable of being a little divorced from reality. But what is the reality then when it comes to public transit in relation to drugs, homelessness, and crime? The reality is that public transit gives all of us, including our unhoused population, an affordable means to travel to jobs, job interviews, and social services. The sorts of things that could get people out of homelessness and out of situations where people are caught up in the criminal justice system. And because of that, if we are serious about addressing issues with drugs, crime, and homelessness, we need to support rather than sabotage public transit.